We're ready for the start. They're off.
And hi again, everybody. Jeremy Plonk, Jeff Siegel with ExpressBet First Call. We are on the air for a big weekend of racing. It's Whitney Week at Saratoga. It's the second biggest weekend of the year, only behind the Travers. But don't tell that to the handicap division. We've got some of the best older horses in the game going this weekend, Mr. Siegel. And if we want to talk 3-year-olds, it's also Derby Day in West Virginia, so a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the Mountaineer race, actually, West Virginia Derby. There's some nice colts in there. As you'd expect for $500,000. Saratoga loaded with stakes races. Del Mar, I think they had, I didn't count them up, but I sort of like estimated somewhere around 130 horses entered at Del Mar. So lots there. And the weekend is going to be fantastic down there and at Saratoga. So good racing, good gambling, an opportunity to make some money. And that's what we're here for.
Well, we're not going to waste any time. Let's get to the handicapping, everybody. First up, the West Virginia Derby at Mountaineer on Saturday, 1 1/8 big pot here of $500,000 for the 3-year-olds going 1 1/8. Brad Cox has gotten to be a regular customer in the panhandle of West Virginia, and he's back. He's got the shipper in, Homebrew, who's going to be a strong contender in here as Cox returns to Mountaineer with another top flight contender. We the People, the horse who was one of the hot shots going into the Belmont Stakes, 4th place finisher in that one after setting the pace. You got Skippy Longstocking, who was 3rd in the Belmont. Simplification, the winner earlier this year of the Fountain of Youth Stakes. And King Ottoman, the winner of the Texas Derby, and last out 3rd in the Indiana Derby. So there are some credentials amongst this field of 7, Mr. Siegel.
It is a very good race, and you're talking about maybe a second level of the 3-year-olds. But with a horse like, for example, Homebrew, he's got a chance to maybe advance and put himself right on the cusp of that leading group if he can duplicate his most recent win in the Pegasus, which it was just a listed race, but it was the way he did it that was very, very impressive. You can see him on the outside in the pink. He's going to pulverize this field and go on and win it by more than 6 lengths, 97 Byron number, by far a career top, but giving every indication, Jeremy, that the longer they go, the better he's going to be. Right. And really, if you look at his form, he's got one bad race, and that was in the slop and the Smarty Jones. Draw a line through that, and he's pretty salty. I think he has a very good chance to take this raising class and win again. We the People, obviously, 2-1 in the morning line is going to be the favorite, or at least I think he will be, coming out of the Belmont. Before that, the Peter Pan win. And he'll be in front, but I don't think Homebrew will be too far behind. That's why I'm going to go with Homebrew to win for Brad Cox.
You know, this one's kind of in the hands of the weatherman, I think, a little bit. You know, when you look at the form for Homebrew, he's 4 for 4 on fast tracks. His 2 defeats came when there was a little bit of moisture. You look at We the People, and he freaked on a wet track. I know it was just listed as good, but that was a wet track when he won the prep for the Belmont Stakes in the Peter Pan. They're calling 50% chance of rain on Friday at Mountaineer, 50% chance of rain on Saturday. I can't give you a lean. 50 is 50, Jeff, but I'll tell you this. If it's wet, the lean probably goes to We the People. If it's dry, the lean to me strongly goes to Homebrew. So I'm going to keep an eye on the sky and an eye on the tote board on Saturday at Mountaineer when I handicap this race.
No, obviously that's part of the equation, and we're not sure what's going to happen. It's 50% rain, but it means 50% that it won't rain.
That's right.
So I don't know what we're dealing with here, but I mentioned Homebrew's race in the slop and the Smarty Jones is only poor run. So obviously, if it comes up wet, even though on pedigree he should like it off track based on by street sense and that of Rabbi Tappan. But again, his one poor run was there, and I don't know whether he just had a bad day, didn't like the track, or maybe he will handle it. I'm not sure. I'd certainly like to have it dry and fast for him, because that I know he'll handle. And if he were to win this race, or whoever wins this race, still has that big Pennsylvania Derby to shoot for next month. This is, I wouldn't call it necessarily a stepping stone to that race, but it is a lead into it for Colts that can win this one. There's still one big major race out there, and we'll see who can advance and maybe still have an outside chance. I mean, that's a long shot, I realize, but put himself in a championship picture if, like, for example, if Homebrew were to win this race and then come back and win at Parks, I mean, he still have to go and do something in the Breeders' Cup, but not that far removed. but it certainly makes him a part of that league. I think he's got it in him. I really do. Whereas we, the people, I think he could win a big race, but I think things have to really go his way as they did in the Peter Pan. So a very interesting race, as you mentioned. The weather might hold the key.
And you've got Simplification in there, the horse who won the Fountain of Youth, fourth in the Kentucky Derby in a surprisingly good performance, then disappointed equally as much when sixth in the Preakness Stakes. What part of the rainbow is he on? I mean, is he on the upswing or the down?
I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. The horses go different directions here, so I'm not really sure with him. But I'm pretty sure that Homebrew is on the right path. So that's where I'm going to go.
Yeah, I'm looking for a fast track, and I'm looking for Homebrew on a fast track to roll by him. I'll be using him pretty heavily in the multi-race wagers there at Mountaineer. Of course, we've got multi-race wagers this weekend with $25,000 in hit and splits to offer, including that pick 4 at Mountaineer that includes the West Virginia Derby. Let's look at this $25,000 weekend hit and split lineup from Express Bet and First Bet. Saratoga's late pick 4 on Saturday. Gulfstream's late pick 4 on Saturday. Got a late pick 4 at Del Mar and at Mountaineer, as we just talked about. $4,000 hit and splits at Gulfstream, Del Mar, and Mountaineer. We sweeten the pot a little bit even more with a $5,000 hit and split at Saratoga in their late pick 4 on Saturday. A couple of those at Saratoga and Del Mar for $4,000 a piece on Sunday. Hit and split simply means this: if you hit the pick 4 during those wagers, you get not only your pari-mutuel winnings when you bet with Express Bet and First Bet, you also split $4,000 or even $5,000 on that Saratoga Saturday late pick 4. You'll split those winnings just with people on the platforms at Express Bet and First Bet who also win. So take down the pari-mutuel money and add a little cash to your coffers as well. Let's go next up to the Glens Falls at Saratoga, our next handicapping chore here on the podcast this week. The Glens Falls, a grade 2 stakes race at the Spa. Gets a real strong stakes program, the second half of the program at Saratoga, often rolling in that 7th race. It's 1.5 miles on the grass. Jeff, these are Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf Division hopefuls, and we've got a big one in here as War Like Goddess is expected to be solidly favored.
Well, yeah, odds on for sure. And War Like Goddess is a filly who developed into maybe the best North American-based marathon filly and mare that we have. There's not a lot out there, let's face it. It's a small division. But War Like Goddess, who was beaten a half length in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf win, arguably she moved or was moved too soon. And now she comes back as a 5-year-old. Joel Rosario picked up the mount for Bill Mott, and he's on her again. But I really liked her win at Keeneland, Jeremy, because she showed me she was every bit as good. And sometimes they're not, but she's every bit as good this year as she was last.
Breeders' Cup at Keeneland. She got the return win in the Bewitch, going 1.5 miles on the grass earlier this spring. Let's take a look back to her only start of 2022.
War Like Goddess looks for room to the inside. La Lune's going to swing wide for the drive, 1/4 mile to go, and Core Values is last. Here comes Family Way. War Like Goddess needs room. Breeze Rider still there with a short lead to the inside. Family Way now, War Like Goddess. War Like Goddess strikes the lead in the final furlong. Now has to fend off Family Way. War Like Goddess by 3/4 of a length. By a length, War Like Goddess returns with a win for Joel Rosario in the Bewitch.
Now, Jeff, she's to come from behind her. There's not a lot of pace in this 1.5 mile race to Glens Falls. I think Virginia Joy may go to the front for Chad Brown with Irado Ortiz. Maybe Key Biscayne under Junior Alvarado. One of those two, maybe hold on for the Exacta. Is this one where you can kind of see a slow pace, but she's still good enough to go by?
Yeah, I think that even with a slow pace, even if the race is reduced to a 1/4 mile sprint, I don't think it's going to matter. We saw there where War Like Goddess was on top of them. They had a little bit of a traffic issue there and still burst through. War Like Goddess, other than the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, she has been farther ahead, and obviously in her wins, in every race other than the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf than she was at the 8th pole. So she doesn't hang, she doesn't open up and kind of back up. She finishes. And like I said, I don't care if they go 3/4 and 19. It's not going to matter because all she's going to do is cruise up in there and then outkick them. So, but your point about who might run second, because that's really the only way you can try to make money in a race like this. But a horse like Virginia Joy, as you mentioned, yeah, I mean, if they let her alone, I mean, she can make the running. And I think the way the pace situation projects, I think she'll have that chance. But I don't think anybody is outkicking Warlike Goddess.
If you're playing the multi-race wagers, Warlike Goddess to me looks like an obvious single. You say?
Yeah.
Single as well. All right. Yeah. Let's move on. The Saratoga card coming up next. The test.
They're off.
Test stakes, 7 furlongs for the 3-year-old fillies, $500,000 here. We've seen some good ones run dazzling performances over the years in the test, Jeff. And with this field, we've got a filly who's just put up dazzling performance after dazzling performance coming into the test. That's Mataraya. She's got the rail. She's fast, but she can sit, and that might be useful in the race that's got some speed to it.
I think she can lay fairly close, but this is a weird race in the sense that we expect in a race like the test, and we've seen it over the years, where you have like 4 or 5 Matarayas in the race, of that level. And now this race, it looks like they have just one, and that's her. Yeah. The rest of them, I mean, they're nice fillies and all that, but you don't. For example, Hot Peppers, who just won the Victory Ride, did so with a 74 buyer speed figure. I mean, that could lose a lot of maiden claiming races. So, yeah. I mean, the competition is almost non-existent for Mataraya if she shows up with anything close to her best. And the way she's been training, Jeremy, I expect maybe the best she's ever given us.
Yeah, she's one of these fillies, even going back to when she showed up at Keeneland in the spring in the Beaumont. I thought, man, she's caught some easy fields, you know? But then she just dusts everybody, and they get a little progressively harder, and she dusts them too. And I'm finished questioning her anymore. I think she's going to fire. I think she's the top 3-year-old filly sprinter in the country, and there's no reason here in the test. If there was somebody good enough to run with her, they'd be here. Where else are you running for 500,000 in 3-year-old filly sprint ranks in a grade 1 at Saratoga? This is where you would be if you were good enough to run with her, and the horses in here just simply aren't. So to me, I think you're fishing around for an exacta in here. I think you're looking at back-to-back big stakes favorites. Of course, we said in the 7th race, Warlike Goddess in the Glens Falls. Here in the 9th race, the test, I think it's obviously Mataraya. I thought maybe for the exacta, Sterling Silver, the 2 in here, or Chi-Town Lady. Chi-Town Lady looks like one who can pick up some pieces late and maybe be left to go at a price. You got Wesley Ward, Joel Rosario, Ward had a win on the card Thursday at Saratoga. His barn's starting to perk up just a little bit here at the spot. I thought maybe Chi-Town Lady from off the pace would be the exacta play in here for me, because when you've got a good filly who's fast like Mataraya, who opens up and guts everybody, I think the chasers just let their tongue wag and say, I don't want to do this anymore, and somebody else can come plodding along. So I'm going to take Chi-Town Lady second. It's Mataraya, Chi-Town Lady exacta, the way I see the test. Anybody you like underneath?
Not really. I could see maybe Elm Drive getting loose, and maybe she can get brave, but I don't have a lot of confidence in the also-rans in here. I just, from the rail, all Pratt has to do is avoid any kind of bad racing luck. That's one thing. Just don't trip over yourself and win it. But for this kind of money and for grade 1 status, Mataraya, who is just a 3-year-old, but she's looking for competition in this particular division right now. There's not a lot of depth in it. Not without Echo Zulu. That's what we're looking for, and she's not in training. So
I wasn't going to bring it up, but I think I will anyway, just to stir the pot a little. So Anthony Stabile from Naira on Twitter today, razzing Flavian Pratt, saying he won't get down on his belly and finish on a horse, and that this isn't Umberto Rispoli you're riding against here in New York. There's one thing about the New Yorkers is they're protective of their own. I mean, if you're busting Flavian Pratt for like the last 3 or 4 years, or even the last couple of weeks that he had, I don't know what game you're playing. I mean, he is clearly one of the top 3 or 4 jockeys in America. But when you're the out of town guy trying to break into Saratoga, I guess you're fair game to punch at.
Funny thing is, he's not near the top of the standings. But in handicapping the races, I found that I haven't been picking many of his horses, and certainly I would go out of my way to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe he hasn't quite got the choice mounts that I expected him to get. Maybe he expected him to get. But I can tell you this: when I have picked him, he has delivered. So personally, I have no issue, but other people might have a different opinion.
I think he's got 12 or 13 winners at this point, and like 9 of them have paid $7 or more. So it's
Yeah.
not like he's got a bunch of $3 winners among the ones that he has. But he is getting a lot of Chad Brown mounts, and I guess you just assume if you're riding for Chad and as good as he's doing, that that you're just a rubber stamp to the winner's circle. But
Well, he may not be getting the best Chad Browns yet, though. So he's getting some of them, but not all of them.
I would love to suck as bad as Flavian Pratt.
By the way,
if that's the criticism that I have in life, that you're only as good as Flavian Pratt, I'd be pretty happy with that.
I have it on pretty good authority, by the way, that he is going to come back for the fall Santa Anita meeting and then maybe Hollywood and then ride out here next winter. So we haven't lost him yet.
All right. We shall see.
You like him, so.
More stakes action to come from Saratoga.
They're off.
Saturday's main event around the country on the thoroughbred side, the $1 million Whitney from Saratoga, grade 1, 1 1/8 miles. And there are grade 1 races, and then there are really good grade 1 races. This is in the really good category because you've got Life is good as any horse in America right now. He and Flightline seem to be on another plane than the rest. How far they'll go, we can discuss. But at 1 1/8 miles, Life is good will be a solid favorite. But he is not without competition in here, Jeff Siegel. Olympiad has rattled off 5 in a row. He loves to sit second and make his one move. Happy Saver. Other horses in this race don't have the speed to keep up early, I don't think. It looks to me like Life is Good sets the lead. Olympiad gets that beautiful spot that he wants, and the race is on for an entire 9 furlongs.
I'm not sure what they're going to do with Hot Rod Charlie with the blinkers going back on. From the 2-hole, they might send him out of there as well. I'm not saying he'll be in front, but I don't think Life is Good is going to be going 24 and 48. And you really wouldn't want him anyway, because that's
right. He'll go.
That's his wheelhouse. That's his weapon. Make the lead and set good splits and keep going and run everybody else into the ground. But Jeremy, after that disappointing race in the Dubai World Cup, where I thought, and you know how excuses are, everybody's got one, but I actually thought that was a legit excuse where he couldn't get the 1.25 miles on that very deep and tiring track. But I thought he came back and won the Nehru. I thought that was good. I don't think he was 100% cranked up that race. I don't think Todd wanted him to be that tight, but he won the race. But since then, that's what I wanted to look at. Yeah. I wanted to see what he looked like after the Nehru. And what I saw, I'm pretty impressed with.
He ran so well the other morning, he changed the color of the sky at Saratoga. You should take a look at the video from XP TV. He's just coming down the lane nice and easy. 1/2 mile, 48 and 1. And Jeff, you talk a lot of times about workouts of, what did they get out of it? How did they gallop out? We are going to see a textbook, fantastic gallop out. The kind to me that almost changes my opinion of a horse in a race, because you and I talked right before we started recording the podcast. We were both on paper very interested in Olympiad to win this Whitney. And then watch the gallop out here by Life is Good. I mean, he looks like he's racehorsing right now. And this is 3 furlongs after the work.
You know what's good about this work, too, is that he doesn't pull in any way. I mean, sometimes you get fast horses and they want to tear out of there and then you got to guzzle them and they work fast, but it's not really a good work. It's not what you want. But Life is Good now at age 4 and with 9 races of experience. He's learned that he doesn't have to work fast. And he didn't. He went 48 and 1, but he did it in such rhythm and he looked so good doing it. And he's the kind of horse that in the afternoon will show speed, but if you remember his race in the Pegasus World Cup, he made the lead that day. He went 46 and 110, which is not, it's fast, but it's not blazingly fast. Mm-hmm. And I look for the same thing that happened here, because I don't think Olympiad, and when he works out such a great trip, but he's not quick enough to get in front of Life is Good in the first, furlong. I don't think anybody else is, and I'm not so sure Hot Rod Charlie wants to bust out there and go with Pratt. So I think Life is Good's going to make the lead, and he's going to get into his rhythm, and he's going to keep on going. And I would love, as a fan of the sport, to see Life is Good win this race from here to there, and I want to see Flightline win from here to there in the Pacific Classic, and I want to see a heavyweight fight at Keeneland. Wouldn't that be fun?
long as they get from there to here, and here being the Breeders' Cup, and they get there together. If they win by a mile each and they don't end up clashing in the Breeders' Cup, it'll be a disappointing season, that we didn't get to see that clash. We clamored for years of when will Zenyatta and Rachel Alexandra meet. We're not quite in that length of angst to see the two meet, but boy, I know a lot of people, you and I included, that want to see this matchup of Life is Good and Flightline. Hot Rod Charlie's an interesting horse, second in the Belmont last year, second in the Dubai World Cup, but a really surprising second in the Salvatore Mile. Though I know that day, Mind Control really ran tough. He was strong from the rail that day and showed speed all the way. But boy, if that's your prep to take on Life is Good and the Red Hot Olympiad, I just wanted to see more from Hot Rod Charlie in that last start. I know he's a good horse, but I just don't know if he's as good as these horses at a 1 1/8.
Well, the only thing that'll save him, and no disrespect to Mike Smith, but he's back with Pratt, who seems to get the most run out of him. So maybe that'll make a difference. I'm not sure what the blinkers on will do. He's worn them before. I don't think it. The only thing I'd say about him is his fastest numbers came with blinkers, but I'm curious to see how they're going to ride him, because he's one of these horses. He's not really a closer. I mean, if he's 5-6 lengths off the lead, he doesn't really punch it. He needs to be right in the fray every step of the way. So if I'm Pratt, I'm thinking, I want to win this race, and I can't take him back and make a run. He's just not that kind of horse. So does he gut up inside and keep Life is Good busy early? I don't know. It's a race within a race, and that's what makes this race so intriguing.
If he does, then obviously it's gift wrapping for Olympiad at that point, right? I mean, because that's exactly what Olympiad wants to do, is make that first overrun and pounce. If he gets somebody to do the dirty work in the name of Hot Rod Charlie in this race, Olympiad, and he's just got to be licking his chops at that point. And Junior Alvarado's got to say, thank you, sir. I mean, he still may not win it. He may not be good enough, and Life is Good may dispatch Hot Rod Charlie and still go on. But if you're Olympiad, that may be the absolute best case scenarios for Hot Rod Charlie to come hustling out of there.
Could happen. That's why it's such an interesting race, because it's a terrific race. You've got other horses in here that are very good. Happy Saver on his best day is dangerous. But this is a thinking man's race, and I'm very curious to see how it shapes up, and that's part of the game.
They're off.
To Saratoga on Saturday for the final of 4 stakes races that we'll look at here on the First Call podcast, race number 11. It's the Saratoga Derby Invitational, $1 million for the 3-year-old turfers. And we've got ourselves a big field to look at in this one, Jeff, where I got the Oaks field up there. Hang on one second. Let's get that Saratoga Derby up there. Here we go with the Derby field. Derby field has got a field of 11, as we've commiserated over the course of the Saratoga meet. A lot of great races with short fields and weren't necessarily great betting opportunities. This is one of the better betting stakes races for sure among the grade ones that we've seen all meet long. With a field of 11, some familiar names and some horses who are returning from overseas, but didn't leave the American confines. They stayed here since shipping in for the Belmont Invitational Derby. The Belmont Invitational Derby, obviously a key race in your handicapping for this one, because 7 of these 11 horses came out of that same race at Belmont Park, including most of the favorites. So it's a big-time rematch here, Jeff. What do you make of the Derby field?
Actually, I went with a newcomer because I saw 7 horses coming out of the same race. And the race itself was won by a big long shot. So I don't know if it was a great race. Classic Causeway. He won the race, and he was game. I'll give him credit, but he was not hanging on for dear life in the final 50. He was holding sway. I give him credit for it. The 48 half was relatively slow, but the opening quarter was 23 and small change, so he earned it. Now you throw in Emmanuel in there; he's not going to wait around for anybody. So this race has the potential of going 1 mile and 3/16, even though there was a pretty long run to the clubhouse turn. That opening quarter should be soft, but you never know. I went with a fresh face here. I don't know if he's good enough. I went with number 6, Annapolis. He's untested for sure against this level of competition, although he did win a grade 2 as a 2-year-old, and then he was second in the Penn Mile on real soft ground. Then he he won. But he's a Warfront Crow trained by Todd Pletcher. He's going a mile and 3/16. He's never been this far. He's got to turn a foot. I mean, he can quicken.
Yep.
And I'm just thinking, here's the thing. He's made a forward move in every one of his races, and I think he's got another one in him. So based on his win in the Manila, which was, I thought, very good, maybe he's good enough to take that step up in class and pull off a mild surprise.
Let's show the fans that Manila Stakes that we're talking about. Annapolis here going to be coming on the outside for the victory.
The field is at the top of the stretch. It is Shansu, Boston Tea Party, Coinage. Annapolis is now coming on through as they come down for the 8th pole. Annapolis now kicking in here in the stretch. It is Annapolis with a quick brush there to take over the lead. Coming for home, it is Annapolis, and he did not disappoint today. Annapolis won by 3.5 lengths. Double Clutch came from last to get second. Ready to Perform was third, and the mile on the widened turf, 1 minute, 32 and 4/5 seconds.
Jeff, I wanted to leave some of the gallop out in there because the horse finished up well past the wire. We're stretching out from a mile, going to the mile in 3/16. And, you know, the dam, My Miss Sophia was really good, but she was like a miler, and she was a really good miler for Todd Pletcher on the dirt. Annapolis obviously handles the turf well, gets that from the sire Warfront. No question about that. It's about the mile in 3/16 and how the distance will shape up. But I will say this mile and 3/16 is going to be run almost like a dirt race in a lot of cases, because I think of those two dirt speed horses, you know, Emmanuel and Classic Causeway, who found themselves on the front on the turf last time and were able to pull upsets. Now they're both in there together. And so we're going to get a legitimate pace in this race between those two. And I think that can help a horse like Annapolis, who won't be that far off of it. He's got good miler speed. I don't think he'll be that far off of it. What do you make of the Europeans in here? Nation's Pride, Stone Age, both getting rider changes. Nation's Pride going from Dettori to William Buick, and then Stone Age going from Ryan Moore to John Velasquez. I always like to see an American rider take a foreign horse on one of our home tracks here. So I kind of like Stone Age a little bit. You know, I had the 12-hole last time. Not a much better post-position draw in here from the outside again, but I like John Velasquez taking over on a horse like this for Aidan O'Brien. What do you think of the Europeans, their chance to rebound?
The thing about Stone Age is that he was actually a front runner overseas, and I don't think he needs to lead to win or anything like that, but in the Belmont Derby, he was like way, way back. I don't know how he got that far back. I'm saying, what is he doing way back there in traffic? And he made a pretty good run. Of the Euros, I think Stone Age is was the best going in, and I think he's the best coming out. And with Johnny V taking over, I don't know where he's been, if he's went back or stayed. I'm not sure what the situation is with Stone Age, but he, to me, has upside that maybe some of the others don't. I went and watched his race at Leopardstown when he won the Derby Trial, which is, by the way, a left-handed track, kind of like Belmont. Mm-hmm. Boy, he looked good in that race, and that's one of the reasons why he was actually very well backed in the Epsom Derby. He didn't, he got beat that day, but Desert Crown and those kind of horses, West over there, 100 lengths better than this group. So,
right.
In gambling at the race, gambling on the race, I think Annapolis will be sitting close up. He's coming off a race in which he was behind a 46 flat half. This is not going to be that fast. He'll draft in right behind them. But if Stone Age can somehow manage to get to a point where he's sitting in the second flight right behind the leaders, he is going to be awfully tough to beat.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm going to end up leaning. I'm hoping to get a little bit more price this time, a little elevation off the defeat, another wide draw. Maybe if we can get in that 5 to 6 to 1 range, that's probably asking a little bit too much, but 4 to 1, I'm going to be halfway interested. 5 to 1, I think I'm going to jump in with both feet on that one. Saturday evening at Del Mar, the Grade 1 Clement Hirsch will give a filly a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Distaff. The fillies and mares here running for $400,000 over a mile and a 16th. And Jeff Siegel, we've got a good field down at Del Mar for this one. I know Blue Stripes, a filly that mare that you've liked some this year. She Dares the Devil, the defending champion in this race. Soothsay, welcome back after 13 months. Private Mission in Baffert's got plenty of speed and has run well over the track down there. And Desert Dawn, third in the Kentucky Oaks, the 3-year-old filly going to take on the older horses. This is a nice cast of 7 for the Clement Hirsch.
It's a good race, and I ended up picking Desert Dawn because I could be wrong about this, but I'm envisioning a pretty quick pace.
Yeah.
Here. I mean, Private Mission likes to go to the front or lay close up.
Sure.
You've got She Dares the Devil, who's never going to be too far behind. I mean,
No.
at the end of the lead, she's going to be thrilled, but I don't think she will. Then you got Peter Miller throwing in Samurai Charm, coming out of sprints. You know, maybe he'll scratch her. I don't know why he did this, but if that filly remains in the body of the field, she's going. And that could set things up for Desert Dawn, who won the Santa Anita Oaks. She got a 90 buyer when she was a very good third in the Kentucky Oaks, right behind Ness. And then in the Summertime Oaks here at Santa Anita, she stumbled so badly at the start that she had no chance. But this work right here, she's the one on the outside breaking off behind a couple of workmates and then going on by, tells me Desert Dawn, who is an out-and-out closer, and doing terrific. This is the work at Del Mar. You can't look any better than this. And if they set things up for a filly like Desert Dawn and Phil D'Amato, Umberto Rispoli, this is the one to bet on. At least that's the one I'm going to play. I just hope Peter Miller keeps that filly in the race. I need all the pace I can get to get this filly home.
Absolutely. But you have to like what you saw there in the morning, and you have to like what you see in that potential pace scenario. As for She Dares the Devil, again, she's the defending champ in this race. She won the Fleur-de-Lis at Churchill last time, ran down Super Quick, who was really fast on the front end. She Dares the Devil likes to have that one target sometimes in front of her, and she could get that with Private Mission. But that X factor is the Peter Miller trainee, Samurai Charm, and it's really going to hold a lot of the aces to the way this race is run. But hats off to the connections of She Dares the Devil to come back west again. You know, it'd be easy to keep this horse on the East Coast. A lot of good filly and mare distaff division races on the East Coast that she could have run in to come back to the Clement Hirsch on the West Coast. Last year, it made sense because the distaff was at Del Mar and to get a prep over the track. This year, they're going to Keeneland for the Breeders' Cup. So to come back out here sporting, and I like to see that. And it makes for a more exciting race when we get some of these East-West clashes.
Yeah, we needed her out here to make this race a legit grade one, and she's here. And regardless of how the pace scenario shapes up, She Dares the Devil. She's won half of her 20 starts. She knows where the wire is, and I don't think Brad would send her out here unless he thought she was on top of her game. So that's it. She's the one to beat, deservedly so.
We're going to take a shot there with Desert Dawn for the upset off the pace. Sunday stakes races to listen to on the podcast here this week. Express Bet, First Call podcast as we look at Sunday's Saratoga Oaks Invitational, a mile and 3/16 on the turf. The boys got their chance in the Saratoga Derby Invitational on Saturday. A big field for the boys. For the fillies, not so much. Just 6 of them showing up here. Chad Brown's got 3 of the 6. We've said that many times in 2022, where Brown has a strong percentage of a field, especially in these filly and mare turf ranks. Jeff McCulloch coming off a win last time out in the Belmont Oaks Invitational. She's one of the 3 for Chad Brown in here. How do you see this race shaking out?
Funny, she just won a grade 1 called the Belmont Oaks. This is a Saratoga Oaks. This is a grade 3, apparently. I mean, you figure that out. All I know is it's $700,000. So forget about the.
I think it's the 8th of the race. It hasn't been the Belmont Oaks has been around a few more years, and the Graded Stakes Committee starts to rattle up their points after that. But I would say the Saratoga Oaks Invitational will be a grade 1 probably as soon as the Graded Stakes Committee can benefit it.
I know the rules. The rules are stupid. I mean, that's all I know. Now McCulloch and with the Moonlight, just as I mentioned, ran 1-2 in that race. But as good as McCulloch is, she might be better. She's the daughter of Frank Maloney. She's only had the 5 starts. She's not going backwards. She's going to continue to get better. But Walkathon kind of handled her in the regret last time out. And if you look at the pace scenario here, Walkathon is going to be walking on the lead if she wants to be, although she doesn't need to be, but she's going to fall into it, I think, anyway. Pretty good filly by Twirling Candy, and getting better for Ian Wilkes. And we'll see if they leave her alone, don't respect her. I mean, she's pretty good. I mean, she's won her last 3, and she's opened up into the stretch, and she's kept on going, and the numbers keep on rising. So, I mean, it's one or the other, I think. I mean, I thought McCulloch really did prove best over with the Moonlight, Applebee's filly from overseas. I watched that race. I didn't see anything to lead me to believe that McCulloch wasn't better, and I don't think she's going to go backwards. So I like Walkathon and McCulloch. I think that's the way it shapes up.
Let's let the fans go back and take a look at the Belmont Oaks Invitational from early July.
With the Moonlight and Cairo Memories come to the top of the stretch together. McCulloch is kicking in on the extreme outside. Then comes Haughty and Agartha, and they're in the stretch now. It is With the Moonlight who has the lead. Cairo Memories down on the inside, and here is McCulloch. It's With the Moonlight and McCulloch. McCulloch on the outside with the Moonlight. McCulloch has taken the lead in deep stretch, and it will be McCulloch. With a Rod Ortiz Jr., the English-bred McCulloch is the winner.
Half the field for Chad Brown, half the field out of the Belmont Oaks Invitational. You split those two facts, and McCulloch looked like the best of those horses from the Belmont race and the best of the Chad Brown trainees as well. So McCulloch, the one to beat in here. Jeff's going to take a shot with the pace player, Walkathon.
They're off.
Final stakes race of the weekend that we'll look at on the First Call podcast is the La Jolla Handicap, grade 3, $150,000. These are 3-year-old turfers at Del Mar on Sunday with an eye towards the big races, the Del Mar Derby, a little bit later in the meet. And we've got a field of just 6 here at Del Mar. As big as the fields have been and as big as the fields are all day Sunday, this is like the only race on Sunday's card without 10 or more starters in it. We've got 6 going in the La Jolla, Jeff. They moved it up to race number 5 to keep it out of the Rainbow Six sequence. There is not a standout in this race. In fact, there's not really even like a defined turf stakes performer. This is a little bit of a mixed bag of a field.
I wanted to like Armagnac here. I really did. I mean, if you look at his form, 2 races back, he made the running and he kept on going. He made the pace in the Preakness. He faded there. And I thought, he's out of a lemon drop kid mare. Maybe he'll like the grass. So I went and watched his turf work on XB TV. We're not going to show it here, but you can check it out at XB TV if you want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to see much, I can tell you that. He was by himself, and then he kind of, he wasn't really being asked, but he wasn't real happy out there. His stride wasn't fluid. He was kind of looking around. And then at the top of the stretch, he caught up with a couple of horses that were in front of him. And I said, okay, finally, he's going to get his concentration going. He's going to see horses. He'll accelerate. I said, this is great. But he didn't accelerate. He just said the same thing. He just
kept idling
along. He didn't have any desire to go and catch those horses. I'm saying that horse doesn't look like a horse that wanted to move up on grass. So, boy, I just wish he had finished in a rally and nothing. Right. So I can't pick him. And the rest of these horses, Stay in Kotai, I mean, his win was nice. It was an allowance win off the plane.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, but he got through every step of the way, saved every inch of ground, won a first-level allowance for 3-year-olds only, got up in time. Nice win, not much of a figure. I don't know how good he really is. Perfect Flight comes in after winning a maiden claimer at Churchill. That's no big deal. Cabo Spirit is a one-pace grinder. I mean, he's a first-time gelding, but he just kind of stays in the same place all the time. And Grit's Wit, who won a $50,000 race 2 races back, only because the leader, who was going to win the race for fun, took a bad step and had to be pulled up. So he won that race by default. And then in his last race in the Oceanside, he got through. It was okay, Right. So it doesn't leave me anything other than Sumter. And Sumter at least won his last 3, and he's won at Del Mar, sprinting last year as a 2-year-old. And he did win the Singletary, beating the horse that won the Oceanside. So I ended up settling for Sumter. I'm not in love with Sumter, even though his form on paper looks pretty good, but maybe he's one of these horses just finds a way. I don't know.
Well, we said this field is kind of a mixed bag, and the only turf stakes horse in the group proven is Sumter, and he validated some of that in the Singletary.
They come to the top of the stretch in the Singletary Stakes. Sumter is there. Durante is second. Balnikoff is on the inside. Handy Dandy is on the outside. Sumter and Balnikoff. It's Sumter, Balnikoff. Sumter and Balnikoff and Handy Dandy. Sumter, Balnikoff, Handy Dandy. 3 of them hit the wire right together in a thriller.
Well, I'll tell you this, Jeff. If it comes down to a photo and Sumter gets beat Anybody who's ever backed that horse has nothing to complain about, because that was the most fortuitous photo to go his direction in the Singletary. You're not owed anything from the racing gods. If you bet Sumter back in this race and it comes to a photo finish, just start walking back to the ice cream stand. You're not going to the pay line.
No, I mean, he won that race, and he got the lucky head bob. He's won in the lead, but he's also won sitting second or third. So if Armagnac wants to bust out there and go, if they figure he needs the lead to win, something that I think he does, then maybe Sumter can draft into a stalking position, and maybe with a target to run out, he'll run better. If you look at his form, first or second 5 out of 6 times, numbers are solid. There's nothing about him that you would dislike, other than in your heart he won a race that he probably didn't win. So
yeah, right.
And he's going to be the favorite, but against this group, I don't know how he can avoid winning again. It'd be nice to see him do it, and we'll just have to see if he can reproduce one of his last 3 wins, because on pure form he really should win.
And when they get to the Del Mar Derby at the end of the meet, you got to figure things are going to get a lot stronger. In that 3
for sure. Yeah.
Year-old turf ranks.
They're off.
Time now on the First Bet podcast, the First Call podcast, where Jeff and I take a look at the first edition of the Breeders' Cup Classic Future Wager. There's a pari-mutuel future wager offered at ExpressBet and First Bet over the course of the weekend. It'll be offered Friday noon through Sunday at 6 p.m. with 24 wagering interests, much like the Kentucky Derby future wager, all the same kind of rules. It'll be run pari-mutually at ExpressBet and again on the First Bet app. And you can take a look at the 24 individual wagering interests with the morning line suggested odds with them. There is an all others category for this as well, like we see at Derby time. But when you talk about it's already August, there's probably one more prep for these horses before the Breeders' Cup. To get beyond the 24 and hit an all others and win the Breeders' Cup Classic is probably a bit of a stretch. John White, our blogger at expressbet.com, in his weekly blog on Wednesday, put out his list of horses that he's keeping an eye on for this year's inaugural edition of the Breeders' Cup Classic Futures. He's got 5 to keep an eye on. Charge It, a big-time winner of the Dwyer. Epicenter, just coming off the victory in the Jim Dandy last week. Country Grammar, looking to bounce back after a defeat at Saratoga recently. Cyberknife, the winner of the Haskell at 30-1 in the morning line. And Taba, 30-1, was the runner-up in the Haskell. So John's given a decent lean in here, Jeff, with 4 3-year-olds to give some consideration to, because when it comes to a future wager like this, you're not necessarily looking for the best horse. You're looking for the best price, right? I mean, Flightline or Life is Good, we'll see his race this weekend. They could very well be heavy favorites for the Breeders' Cup Classic, but they've got to get there. And do you want to take a short price this far out on either one of those two?
No, you don't. I mean, that's not the purpose of a future bet. You
Right.
want to find a long shot that maybe is 30-1 and maybe will be half that or a third of that, and you get some value there if he goes on and does something, if they go on and do something. But I mean, what's the point of taking? I'm not saying taking, because this is just a morning line. You don't know what the price is going to be, but
Right.
you would never take 3-1 on Flightline. I mean, what's the edge? You're taking 3-1 now as opposed to how short do you think he would be? 4 to 5, even money? I don't know. I mean, on the race day, what's the big deal? Where's the savings there? Even 7-2 at Life is Good or 9-2 at Olympia. However, if you can start getting 30-1 on horses like Cyberknife or Taba, I mean, they could be half that on race day, or maybe even a third of that, or less than that if they go out and do something. So that's what you got to look for if you want to play this bet. Go for the 20, 30-1 shots. That's where the value is.
And you've got like the long shot with Nest, would she potentially cross over divisions? That's a gamble. That's not the kind of thing I would take the risk on. If you do, you got to kind of inflate for the improbability that she would even be in the race. So you want to jump your price up if you're looking for a horse like that. But do you want to read more about the Breeders' Cup Future Wager? Be sure to check out John White's blog at expressbet.com. and at news.first.com. So we've got a lot going on this weekend, Jeff. It's Hambletonian weekend for our harness fans out there. Huge race at the Big M. I've had the pleasure of being there a couple times in the past doing fan education events at the Hambletonian. A great event. Our harness blogger, Al Samaglia, has got you covered. He's got an intro to the field posted right now on all the news sites at First Bet and Express Bet, and Al will come in on Saturday with his picks and his pick 4 ticket for the Hambletonian. So you definitely want to follow what Al's got to say for the Hambo this weekend and bet it with Express Bet and First Bet. Should be an outstanding race in New Jersey, and it's the biggest race of the year on the harness calendar. And if you're not a harness player, but you're going to just check in on one race a year, the Hambo's the one, Jeff.
Yeah, I used to work Western Harness back in the 70s. And it was great. We had night racing. We had it was in November, no thoroughbreds at the time, so I was hired to work that and really got into it. I mean, there was I mean, I saw Albatross and those kind of horses, and it was fun. So I don't follow it that much anymore, but Hambletonian certainly is worth watching.
The stakes that we looked at, the 8 races across the board this week on the First Call podcast. Again, we want to mention we've got stakes action with the Florida Sire Stakes, 2 divisions for the 2-year-olds at Gulfstream Park as well to check out this weekend. A couple stakes races on the turf, including the Bald Eagle Derby at Laurel Park. So good turf racing there, 2-year-old racing in Florida, and of course, Hambletonian Day, a big day in New Jersey. And Mountaineer, we talked about the West Virginia Derby, but I believe 7 stakes on the card overall there at Mountaineer, and you can get involved with all the late pick 4 action at Mountaineer with an additional $4,000 hit and split on Saturday, and all those hit and split promotions we have this weekend: Saratoga, Gulfstream, Del Mar, Mountaineer, all offering a grand total of $25,000 in hit and splits when you play those wagers on the First Bet and Express Bet platforms. All you got to do is take down the pick 4. It's not that hard, Jeff, and you add a little extra money to your bank.
Piece of cake.
That's going to wrap up the action on this week's Express Bet and First Bet First Call podcast. We'll be back with you next week to do it all again and set you up for another big weekend. It's Arlington Million weekend, believe it or not, next week. So we'll talk about that race. But between now and then, be sure to check us out on Tuesdays when It's Official. It tells you about 5 key topics and talking points from the previous weekend. Jeff and I will review this big Whitney weekend on Tuesday on It's Official. Join us then. Talk to you next time.